So close. Yep, it happened. After a long time of no Zelda news, we finally got an announcement for a new Zelda game, or rather, old Zelda game, Link's Awakening for the Nintendo Switch. Originally released in 1993, Link's Awakening is the fourth adventure of the hero of legend, the Link from A Link to the Past. When sailing back to Hyrule, his ship is struck by a thunderstorm and sinks. Miraculously though, the hero washes up on the shores of the Isle of Caufield. So the trailer begins with an anime-like cinematic intro, shots of the waves of a stormy ocean. We see Link on his ship in the distance, riding a giant wave and struggling to keep the ship in control. A lightning bolt hits it and we fade to white. This is a remake of the opening from the original game where Link struggles with a ship in the storm. Link looks exactly like his artwork from the Oracle games here too, it's so cool. Hopefully this isn't just designed for the trailer and we get proper cutscenes in the game in this art style, especially for the true ending of the game. We fade to a shot of the island itself, complete with the windfish's egg on top of the mountain. It does look really similar to the art style for a lot of Breath of the Wild's promotional art, like the shot of Link overlooking Hyrule used as the North American box art for the game. Then we see Link floating on the remains of his ship, again just like in the original, and the logo fades in. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. It's interesting that the game isn't called Link's Awakening HD, Link's Awakening 2D, 3D, etc. It's the exact same name as the original one. In addition to this, the Zelda logo is the same stark white, distressed and worn as the logo from Breath of the Wild. Perhaps this hints at some sort of connection between the two. Or perhaps it's just the new direction they want to go with the Zelda logo. The first gameplay shot we see from Link's Awakening Switch is this. Link running through Maybe Village, which is Caufield Island's main settlement over in the west. Link runs up to a Bow Wow outside of Madame Meow Meow's house, which, yes, is basically just a chain chomp. In the original games, this guy's actually just completely harmless to Link, so it would make sense if he just ran away here for show, and they're equally harmless in the remake. Later on in the original, Link can actually use Bow Wow to his own advantage as an item that eats enemies and clears the path to the second dungeon. Obviously, the biggest change to the original we can see here is the visuals. They've gone for a cutesy art style that took a load of people by surprise, but I think it looks really clean. It's so simple, but I love it. Weirdly, we can't see any of the game's HUD, such as heart containers. Perhaps they're just turned off for the sake of the trailer. The edge of the screen where objects are distant has a weird sort of focal blur. Maybe this is just for the trailer again, or maybe it's part of the full game. I quite like it regardless. There are awesome details here that were in the original game, like the abundance of butterflies and mutts, which are dogs native to Caufield. Overall, the village just looks really vibrant and full of life. Everything looks awesome, especially our boy Link. We've never seen him in anything like this art style. Interestingly though, our hero is wielding the Hylian shield in this footage, a shield that wasn't obtainable in the original game. So that's at least one change we know for sure will be in the remaster. It's likely that this gameplay section takes place at the very beginning of the game. In the original, after he washes up on the island, Marin takes you to her father Taran's house where you wake up and are given your shield, and you have to travel south to the beach to find your sword. Link already has his sword here though, so perhaps this takes place a little later on once he's travelled to the beach. He uses it to cut grass, which yields rupees like you'd expect, and then performs a spin attack. The sword he's using looks like the basic sword that's featured in the original game's artwork. However, it does seem that Link is following the path you take at the beginning of the game here, as we see him travelling across the Tchernovol shores like you would in the original. So perhaps you just get the sword at the start of the game. While in the 1993 Game Boy version you have to avoid the Octoroks and protect yourself with a shield, here Link can just fight them head on since he's already got the sword. It's pretty cool to note that this game world isn't broken up into screens like previous 2D Zelda games, it seems to scroll smoothly across the whole world. For a Switch remake of the game, this isn't really that surprising, but it's still cool regardless. Anyway, Link defends himself against the Octorok's projectile with the Hylian shield, then kills the Octorok with his sword. Interestingly, the camera zooms in here. It's likely that it's just for the trailer, but it'd be awesome if there was a zoom feature. There's another shot after this of Link defeating another Octorok, this time with a spin attack next to the Sales House of Bananas, which is a location that features in the trading sequence, one of the game's main side quests. Next up, something really interesting. Assuming this game's been going in chronological order from the start of the game onwards, which it appears to have been, we see something that doesn't quite fit. We see Link at Canalec Castle, which is usually only accessible just before you take on Key Cavern, the game's third dungeon. You need to take on the castle to obtain golden leaves for Prince Richard, which he trades for the key to the cavern. Like everything else, it's got a fresh coat of paint, with new banners with what appears to be a bell on them. This could be the Sea Lily's bell, the instrument obtained in the Key Cavern, which would make sense. We then see Link outside of Bottle Grotto, the game's second dungeon. Outside of how clean this area looks, there's nothing new, except there's something here on the right of the screen, but I can't work out what it could be at all. Let me know in the comments if you know what this blue thing could be. Here we see Marin singing next to the weather vane in Maybe Village. I originally thought this could be similar to the vanes in A Link Between Worlds, which are used as save points, but we've already seen the entrances to some dungeons in the trailer, which always have weather vanes outside in A Link Between Worlds, and weather vanes aren't present outside them, so we can assume that saving will work differently. Somewhat disappointingly though, we can't hear Marin singing here like she does in the original. Perhaps it's just cut for the trailers, but it'd be a letdown if it was taken out. Again, like with the Octorok, we see some camera shenanigans going on. As soon as this clip starts, the camera zooms out quickly, suggesting that it was zoomed in before the clip began. Though I think this is explained in the next clip, where Link is talking to the owl at the entrance to Mysterious Woods. As soon as he begins talking, the camera zooms in a little, like it does in some of the other Zelda games. This is actually a pretty iconic scene from the original. The owl is sort of like a guide for Link on his quest. The dialogue here is the exact same as it is in the original game, word for word, but the bird itself has changed in design from an orangey colour to a darker blue. Here's a section of the Key Cavern dungeon I mentioned earlier, with a fight versus a shrouded Stalfos. These guys throw spears at you and must be attacked from behind. Other than how cool the dungeon looks, there isn't really much to talk about. Then, one of Link's Awakening's famous side-scrolling sections. Yep, just like the original Zelda game, which was mainly top-down but switched to a side view for certain points, Link's Awakening did the same for some weird platforming parts, including a notoriously tedious boss fight. And yep, just like we had Chain Chomps earlier, those are Goombas. Like Goomba Goombas. They're back just like in the original, and looking more Mario-like than ever. Seriously, I wouldn't be surprised if these guys' models were ripped straight from New Super Mario Bros. Next up, a little combat sequence, Link taking on two blue moblins in the Mysterious Woods. Like we saw earlier with the Octorok, he defends himself against the projectile and kills the big guy with a sword. While I mentioned that the Octoroks had changed to their Breath of the Wild design, these moblins have stuck with the old school look, which makes sense. I couldn't see Breath of the Wild's lanky style fitting in this kind of game, and these ones are so iconic. Here we see a boss fight, well, a mini-boss fight, Rolling Bones, the mini-boss of the Tail Cave. This guy rolls a spike trap towards Link, which he has to leap over using Rock's Feather, an item that allows him to hop a small distance into the air. Beating this guy makes way for the dungeon's main boss, Moldorm. And that's it for the first trailer of Link's Awakening for the Nintendo Switch. While obviously the art style has changed drastically, overall it does seem to be a pretty faithful reimagining of the original game. I personally love the look of it, and Link's Awakening is one of my favourite 2D Zelda games, so I'm so happy to see this game dropping this year. What do you guys think? Are you excited for Link's Awakening? Let me know in the comments below. And if you think I've missed any cool details or secrets here in the trailer, leave them below as well. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.